guys, it's Whitney. Welcome back. So this video is a little different than other videos I've made in the past. Frequently I do unhauls, but recently I've been watching Becca and the Books, or Becca and her books. It's one of those. And basically all this video was her pulling books off of her bookshelf that she either was going to try to read within the next 12 months or she was going to potentially get rid of. And I thought that was a really interesting idea because there are some books that I have on my shelf that I haven't really lost interest in, but obviously they're not a priority. Some of them have been on my shelf for literal years, like 4 years, 5 years. So I've pulled 12 books off of my shelf that I think that if I don't get to within the next 12 months, I need to just let them go to new homes because obviously I'm not that interested in them. And my TBR is so large. It's just something that I think that I need to do. Some of these books that kind of haunt me and say, you want to read me, hang on to me, and then I never read are just still hanging around on my shelf, and I think it's time to start letting go. So that's what today's video is. It is 12 books that are going to self-destruct in 12 months. So I'm just gonna dive right in. These are in no particular order. The one on the very top of the stack is controversial as fuck. So we're gonna start with that. That book is Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. This is a beloved book on booktube, and I actually got this one basically the moment it came out because I read Fangirl and I really liked it. I liked the fandom fanfiction aspects that were in between all of the chapters in that book. So obviously I just knew that I was gonna love this book and I was gonna read it right away, and no, that didn't happen. It's a really nice book, and I think a lot of the aesthetic is another reason that I'm hanging on to it as hard as I am. Another motivator is that the sequel to this book actually just came out and it got some kind of mixed reviews, so I'm interested to see if I end up actually liking this book. And for those of you who don't know, it is based off of the fandom and fan fiction that was in Fangirl. So if you haven't read Fangirl, you can still read this. You just won't have the context of Kath's fan fiction in Fangirl. It really doesn't matter anyway because this book is not her fan fiction. This is supposed to be the actual book or something that the author of that series wrote, and this is a Harry Potter-esque series from that universe where Harry Potter also exists. It gets a little confusing. The next one I have is The School for Good and Evil, which is a middle grade book. I've had this for a couple of years and I recently put it on a TBR and I didn't get around to it. Shows where my priorities are, doesn't it? And the reason I'm not just gonna unhaul it because of that is because I have kind of fallen into a reading slump when I put this on a TBR. So I'd like to give it a little more time before I decide if I'm gonna let it go or not. There's nothing that I think is inherently bad about this book or bad sounding about this book. It sounds like fun, to be honest, but it's just something is not making me want to pick it up. Next, I have The Blood Between Us by Zach Brewer. I don't even remember what this one is about. I know that it's contemporary. It has like family drama and secrets and stuff like that. This is sort of the oddball out of Zach Brewer's books, in my opinion. Typically, he writes paranormal, you know, supernatural kind of things, and this one is more of like a contemporary, I don't want to say hard-hitting contemporary because I don't know that, but typically the YA books that tend to deal with family drama and family secrets and stuff like that are more on the hard-hitting side, which I tend to like, but I just don't know. And I absolutely never ever reach for this one. Next, I have Warlock Homes, which is one that I picked up on an absolute whim years ago, and I just haven't gotten to, which is, you know, sort of the theme of this video, so you're probably gonna hear it repeated 1,000 more times before this video is over. But I like the idea of the Sherlock-esque style of story, but with a warlock. It just seemed really fun, and it still seems really fun, but kind of like the rest of these books, I just never reach for it. Next up, I have The Dark Missions of Edgar Brim. This one is one that I was super excited about when I found it. So this book is, in essence, a book about nightmares coming to life in some way. Since I have picked up this book, I have read 2 books about dreams and dreams coming to life that I just haven't loved. So I am not sure that books about dreams, or in this case nightmares, for me. Maybe this one will be better than the others. The only dream book that I have ever, well, I guess there are 2. The only dream books that I've ever liked were The Dream Thieves by Maggie Stiefvater and Call Down the Hog by Maggie Stiefvater. So apparently Maggie Stiefvater is the only author who can do dreams to life in a way that I actually love. Next up, I have Fin Fancy Necromancy. This is an adult fantasy. Maybe it's paranormal. I don't even know what it's about anymore, except for that there's necromancy and someone being framed for a crime involved, which sounds all well and good, but sometimes I just honestly forget that I even have this book. Next, I have The Immortals. This is one that was another, I bought it on a whim kind of thing back when I was newer to booktube. Not new, just newer. And I thought this sounded cool. Picked it up, haven't read it, it's been years. I barely remember the summary. I kind of know like what is in it in the vaguest sense possible. Next, I have The Mechanical. This is one that was recommended to me that I thought sounded cool and I picked up. Since then, it's just been chilling on my shelf and I haven't even thought about it. This one is about machines being slaves and wanting to be free or something of that effect. In a way, it reminds me of Nier, the new one, not the original one. But I know if I go into this book thinking of that as a comparison, I am not gonna like it, so I'm not gonna do that to myself even if I do get to this. If I don't get to it, I'm gonna let it go. Next up, I have the Heroin Complex, which is something that I'm still interested in. It sounds like a lot of fun. But every time I look at this book, I think of 2016. And 2016 was a really bad year for a lot of reasons. Some of you will probably assume it has to do with politics, and it doesn't. It actually has to do with a natural disaster that happened here and devastated the majority of my surrounding area. I actually picked this up because we were already flooded out of our house. Things are a little fuzzy, to be perfectly honest with you, but I remember picking this up so that I would have something to do. Next, I have Incarceron. And yes, this is a very old book. I got this toward the very beginning of my booktube channel, so it has been a long, long time since I've had this book. I think about reading it all the time, probably because it is one of the only like really, really old books that I still have. I've unhauled a lot of the ones because I've either read them and didn't like them or lost interest. But I keep holding on to this one because I'm afraid if I let it go and I don't read it, I will be missing out on a hidden gem of this era of young adult. Also, it's kind of got some steampunk aspects from what I've heard. I'm a little torn now on if I like steampunk aspects or not. I haven't read enough of them to say for certain. Next one I have is pretty polarizing from what I've seen, and that is Uprooted by Naomi Novak. I've had this one a long time. That's the theme. I've had this one a long time and I just haven't picked it up. I remember that somewhere along the way I heard it was a reimagining or a retelling of a fairy tale, and ever since I've read so many fairy tale retellings and I haven't really liked them, I've been sort of put off by this book, even though this is an adult fantasy and all of the ones that I've read have been YA, which is sort of the reason I'm hanging on to this one. I want to know if something like that in an adult fantasy will be more up my alley. And the last one I have is one that I'm still super hyped for, and it would be the one that I would be the least likely to unhaul if I didn't read it for some reason, and that is Broken Monsters. I forget where I heard about this one, but the way they described it just like really resonated with me, and the idea of this really resonates with me. So I don't know the plot anymore. I just remember the very base fact. They find a corpse that is the bottom half of a deer and the top half of a boy fused together. I feel like I remember someone saying this follows a couple of characters, obviously a detective and I'm not sure who else, but I also hear that you get the perspective of the person behind this. And I could be wrong, but that just leaves me really intrigued because I don't know if this is just a typical detective mystery thriller suspense thing or if it's got some paranormal aspects to it. I have absolutely no idea. Either way, I think this will be one that I'm really gonna like. Just have to make myself pick it up. So those are all of the books that I want to try to get to in the next 12 months. Otherwise, I'm probably gonna think about unhauling them very seriously. If there are any books that you have on your shelf and have had on for a long time and just can't make yourself get rid of, please let me know what they are down below. And also if you've read any of these, let me know what you thought of them, if they are worth investing my time in. But that's it for today, and I will see you guys next time.